Willow, can I ask you something?
Yep.
What was it?
The damned thing.
Woo!
Yes.
It was.
Jokes.
It was not even jokes.
Just the truth.
Just the truth. This story could literally be a sequel to What Was It? And the title actually answers that question.
It does.
Amazing. We are dealing with invisibility again. We are dealing with a person who is attacked by an invisible thing again.
Yep.
And we are dealing with a narrator, sort of, who may or may not be taken seriously by the people around him again.
Definitely is not.
There's so much going on in this story, and it is like 5 pages long?
Yep, this story has, I think, 4 chapters.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, 4 chapters.
Yeah, 4-chapter story. It is a 5-minute read.
Yeah, it is. I read it right before doing the recording.
Yeah, it is. It's a breeze, but as stated, a lot happens in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very economical. But before we get into that mess, everybody, I'm Phil.
And I'm Willow.
And it's Del Toro time.
It's Del Toro time.
It's Del Toro time. We're back. We're bad. We're hacks. We're sad. It's Del Toro time.
Are we hacks?
Yes, we are nature's hacks. We are the hackingest hacks. I got called. Do you want to know what I got called today? What? I got called a name today, and because I'm an old, I had to look up what it meant because I'm like, I don't know what these words mean. This is like modern slang. I got called a professional Yapatron 3000. I got called a professional Yapatron 3000 on a YouTube comment. I had to look it up. Apparently, a Yapatron is someone who talks a lot without saying anything, but thinks they have a lot to say.
Rude.
And I'm gonna take that as a compliment. I'm gonna take that as like the biggest.
Has they never heard of ADHD? That's literally all we do.
Plus, I was talking about the Berenstain Bears. I was like, what do you expect me to do? Talk sense?
Yeah.
But I feel like a professional Yapatron 3000, and that's where that's what I'm.
You should get a shirt that says that.
Professional Yapatron 3000. I'm thinking about it, but also like, what if it's somehow like a white supremacy dog signal? I don't know. Like, I just worry that all like words that I'm not intimately familiar with are actually like somehow horrifically offensive.
I don't think professional Yapatron 3000 is, but I'm not the dictionary of modern white supremacy dog whistles, so.
Or the Devil's Dictionary, which was written by Ambrose Bierce. What do you know?
Ambrose Bierce.
Ambrose Bierce. Oh, by the way, it is, what is this called? A Fabulous Formless Darkness. I've got it right here. Fabulous Formless Darkness.
In the Dark Descent by our boy, David G. Hartwell.
David G. Hartwell. Which is what we're covering, which is what we're talking about. We have been covering the stories of the Dark Descent now for 7 years, 8, 9, 10 years.
20 years.
However long. Yeah.
Since I was born.
It's not a long book, but it's taken us a while. Yes, and we're on the third part, A Fabulous Formless Darkness, which is all about psychological horror, but like also real horror. Like, it's real stuff.
I feel like wasn't the last section about psychological horror?
Yeah, what is this? This is about like an indefinable horror. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, because Medusa and the Shield was psychological. This is like sort of indefinable, something weird's going on, but you can't really pin it down. And what a better way to talk about it than with Invisible Boy. The ultimate Invisible Boy, Ambrose Bierce. He disappeared.
And nobody knows where he went.
And we know where he went. He went to Mexico.
Yeah.
We don't know why he disappeared, but it's probably because he got shot or because he was 71 years old and he went to Mexico to join Pancho Villa as a journalist. But Ambrose Bierce, what can you tell me about Ambrose Bierce? Anything?
Nothing. Hang on, give me a second.
You don't have to do your homework now. I'm perfectly willing to fill you in if you're interested.
According to our editor, Ambrose Bierce is, after Poe, the greatest American horror writer of the 19th century, which is a really specific title.
The greatest American horror writer of the 19th century. I mean, I can agree. I would say he's even more prolific than Poe, and probably a much more fun person to hang around.
Yeah.
Did you know that he had siblings?
No.
Did you know that his siblings were named Abigail, Amelia, Anne, Addison, Aurelius, Augustus, Almeda, Andrew, Albert, Ambrose, Arthur,
His sibling was named Ambrose?
And Aurelia. What?
His sibling was named Ambrose? Did he have two siblings named Aurelia?
I believe his name was Ambrose Bierce. Ambrose was him.
Yeah.
But he has an Aurelius and an Aurelia are his siblings. But yeah, all of his siblings had an A. He and his siblings all had A names, which I find very annoying. But also, that's a lot of kids. That is a lot of kids. Because his parents were poor, but literary. They loved to read. They taught him how to read. He loved to read. He left home at 15 to become what is known as a printer's devil.
Of course.
A printer's devil, which I had never heard of, but is what they call it. It's just an apprentice, like an printer's apprentice. Such famous people as Benjamin Franklin, Walt Whitman, and Mark Twain started out as printer's devils.
Why are they called printer's devils? That's awesome.
It was a humorous term for boys who were covered in ink. Quote, from Joseph Moxon, whence the workmen do jocosely call them devils, and sometimes spirits, and sometimes flies. Printers' devils.
There you go. History lesson of the day.
A famous printer's devil was Tittivulus, referred to as the original printer's devil, who was apparently sort of a gremlin. Like, people consider, like, if things went wrong, Tittivulus was to blame. He was blamed on the omitting the word "not" in the 1631 authorized version of the Bible, which resulted in Exodus 20:14 reading, "Thou shalt commit adultery." Printers' devils.
Hell yeah.
Literally hell yeah, though. So, yeah, Ambrose Bierce, he's born to this poor family, grew up in a log cabin, was exposed to the abolitionist movement at a young age, which sort of established his, like, beliefs in criticizing Puritan values and societal norms. He joined the American Civil War, participated in battles like Shiloh and Kennesaw Mountain. He was a topographical engineer under General William Babcock Hazen, where he was considered a great fighter in the Civil War. They were like, this guy's brave. He was commended for his skill. He met a lot of famous people, and that influenced his writing. So he wrote a lot of war stories. He wrote memoirs. He dealt with PTSD explicitly on the page. He was very anti-war. He was very pro-human, pro-people, and was very critical of the nature of human conflict. Following his military career, he went into journalism in San Francisco. He was known for his wit, his cynicism, his observation of American societies. Nobody liked to hang around him because he was going to gossip about you. He was opposed to the railroad refinancing bill, and his coverage of that highlighted his commitment to journalistic integrity and his ability to influence public opinion. He ended up writing the Devil's Dictionary, which was like his big hit originally, which is a hilarious dictionary defining terms the way the devil would define them. He became one of the most influential of American writers, and then in 1913, at the age of 71, he left Washington to go tour the Civil War battlefields that he had fought on. He headed towards Mexico to join Pancho Villa as an observer and to like interview him and like travel with Pancho Villa during the Mexican Revolution. People loved Pancho Villa. He wanted to get to know him. On December 26, 1913, he wrote to his friend Blanche Partington from Chihuahua, Mexico, that he was leaving tomorrow for an unknown destination, and that is the last anyone ever heard of him. He then thus entered into not only the history of American letters, but the history of North American mythology, as many theories were posited as to what happened to Ambrose Bierce, but the facts are he probably just died because he was 71, entering a war zone with one of the most charismatic Mexican revolutionaries of all time. So Ambrose Bierce, ladies and gentlemen, what a guy.
Sometimes the answer is the simple answer.
Sometimes the answer is you were 71 years old in 1917.
13, right?
1913, sorry. And you probably died, if not from being shot, if not from being starved or dying of thirst, then you died of being 71 years old. I think that's probably what happened. That didn't stop writers from speculating. He became a literary, there's like a whole series of like mystery novels, like The Adventures of Ambrose Bierce solving mysteries. Like he is a character. He is a literary character because people are like, whatever happened to Ambrose Bierce? He probably died at the age of 71 with Pancho Villa's army.
I hope so. The stories like this are why I like hope that there is an afterlife, so that like people know what has become of their legacy.
he also, I mean, he had two sons who died young. He had a son named Day, D-A-Y, who was rejected by a woman he was in love with, and then he shot her and her fiance, and then he killed himself. She and her fiance lived, as far as I can tell. And then his son Lee died of pneumonia brought on by alcoholism. So he had a pretty unhappy family life. And then his wife separated from him in 1888 after discovering compromising letters to her from an admirer. And then she died the following year. So he had a lot of tragedy in his life, a lot of trauma.
That is true of a lot of the writers we read.
That's true, and it comes out in his writing a lot. He has no patience for fools. He has no patience for unnecessary conflict and violence. But he's not above writing about violence, writing about conflict, and writing about spooks and ghouls and ghosties.
So, is getting into the story? My first question.
Let's.
Is this a self-insert?
Which character would you say is a self-insert?
See, it could either be the coroner or it could be the journalist. Testifier?
The testifier.
Yeah. I don't know if he's a writer. He writes stories, but he said something about sending something to a newspaper.
Uh-huh.
The account you posted to your newspaper, so it could be either one.
Yeah.
Or it could be both.
I thought you were going to say the deceased.
Oh, well, it could be that
because
too,
we also get a big look inside the head of the deceased.
It could be all three.
Or it could be a composite of all three. But before we get into that, why don't you tell us... Okay, The Damned Thing is the name of our story. And it was written... it was published in Town Topics, the Journal of Society, a magazine published in New York City on December 7th, 1893. Town Topics was also known as Andrew's American Queen, Art, Music, Literature, and Society, and American Queen.
More A's. It's just all A's.
It was a gossip rag. A lot of what it was a trash rag that Ambrose Bierce wrote for. But yeah, The Damn Thing appeared in 1893. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what this story is about?
I'll go section by section.
Okay, it should take you about 2 minutes.
Yep. The first section, called One Does Not Always Eat What Is on the Table,
which is great.
Yeah, that's a great title. Is basically we open up with the coroner reading the journal of the deceased man on his table.
Yes.
And he has a room full of 8 other men in there with him who are all being deadly silent. And they're like small town folk. From like up in the mountains. And they're waiting for somebody to show up. A young man who does show up and is like, "Sorry I'm late. I was busy posting stuff to the newspaper."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, sure. The account that you gave to the newspaper, that's definitely 100% gonna match the account you gave here, right? Totally?" He's like, yes. And basically it begins with the introduction of William Harker, our first narrator or second narrator, kind of.
Right, there's an objective narrator, and then there's William Harker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's clearly not taken seriously by these people because he's a city boy.
Yeah.
And pretty much immediately the coroner makes fun of him, but it turns out that this is like a court hearing, kind of small town.
It's an inquest. It's what you would call an inquest. Like there's a jury there, but it's in the dead guy's cabin.
Yeah.
And yeah, they've like gathered a bunch of local men to sort of like feel out what's going on here.
And the witness begins to testify, but he doesn't testify from memory. He testifies from a written account, like manuscript from his pocket. And he testifies in story format, which I love, because clearly that's the only way one can testify.
Yeah.
Which leads us to the second section, What May Happen in a Field of Wild Oats, which is basically just William Harker's testimony. He was visiting the deceased named Hugh Morgan, because he wanted to write about Hugh Morgan's solitary lifestyle.
Yeah.
And while they were out hunting, Hugh, or Morgan, I guess is how they refer to him, starts freaking out, and is basically like there is something in the bushes, the damned thing. They name drop the story, which, always high quality.
Always a highlight.
Yeah. And William is like, what are you talking about? There's nothing there. Until Hugh shoots the creature with his quail hunting gun.
Yeah, they're hunting quail.
Yeah. And it doesn't do much. It makes the creature really angry, and the creature rushes at Morgan. But it's hard for William to really tell what's going on at first because there's smoke because of the gunshot. And he finally sees what's going on, and Morgan is being like contorted and grabbed by invisible hands, and there's no creature there, even though Harker can felt the creature run into him and stuff.
Yeah.
And basically by the time he got out of his shock of what was going on to rush over to help, Morgan was dead.
Yeah. Horribly dead.
Dead.
Yeah, torn asunder.
Mm-hmm. That ends that section. Section number 3. A man, though naked, may be in rags.
Yeah. Because he's torn to pieces.
Yep. The coroner is like, yeah, that's what happened. Sure, buddy. They look at the dead body, and the dead body's clearly been torn apart by something.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, guys, we don't have any more evidence except for this guy's testimony. You all go talk amongst yourselves to decide what happens. Our good old William Harker gets insulted again. One of them asks what asylum he escaped from, and the coroner is like, Jesus Christ, and asks the question. And Harker doesn't rise to the bait, though.
Yeah.
He gets embarrassed, but he just kind of brushes off the insults and stuff. He doesn't really respond to them. He says, I guess, if you have done insulting me, I suppose I can leave now, because he clearly wants out of there.
Right.
And then he, as soon as he goes to leave, he's like, can I, take a look at that journal that you got? That Morgan's journal? And the coroner's like, no. He's like, all right, bye.
Well, so what I like is they're like, let's go. Okay, so you heard this guy's testimony about his friend being attacked by an invisible monster. They're like, we're going to go figure out what we're going to decide about this whole thing. They come back and they're like, so we're all agreed it was a bobcat.
Mm-hmm.
He was attacked by a bobcat. And they're like, yeah, it's a bobcat. And he's like, well, what about all this? They're like, you're nuts. He's like, but what about the guy? He has a journal. He kept the journal up till his death. They're like,
yep.
Unimportant. Tossing it aside. And our hero, who we think is kind of supposed to be the main character, he then just walks out of the story.
Honestly, smartest horror story protagonist of all time.
Because the final section is the journal.
Yeah. The final section is snippets of Hugh Morgan's journal describing an escalating, paranoia and understanding of what is going on.
Yeah.
And the last entry is the longest, and basically it ends with him being like, I understand now, we can't see the creature because the creature is of a color that is beyond us. Yeah.
So the final section is kind of a scientific treatise. It's this guy's slow descent into, I won't say madness, but he's being driven out of his head by this invisible something that is stalking him. He lives in this cabin with his dog, and there is something that his dog keeps reacting to that he can't see.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of lies in wait for it. He focuses on he observes nature. He looks for movements in the oats. He arms himself. He gets more and more paranoid as he goes out. Finally, he invites our Harker there to see if he can see it too. He's like, this, if I'm not nuts, this guy will be able to see it.
Yeah, and because he knows that Harker is level-headed.
But he also begins speculating. He's like, okay, if there are sounds that humans cannot hear because they're outside our range of hearing, and if there are lights, if there are wavelengths of light that we cannot see because we're not equipped to see it, then there must be colors that we can't see, which means that if there are creatures that are of this color that make this noise, we would not be able to perceive them. Therefore, this thing is an invisible monster.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that actually scientifically makes sense. I think if you can't see a color, it would just look like a shadow, a blank spot. The light wouldn't reflect off of it effectively. I don't know.
Dogs can't see certain colors, but they can still see movement and shadows and stuff.
We can't see the infrared colors of a flower, but the flower is still there.
Light still reflects off of things you can't necessarily make out.
Right. Well, this, of course, being the 1800s when this was written, and B, also like it's speculative science fiction. Like he's doing that thing where it's like, I'm trying to lend some plausibility to this spook 'em up. And because what year was What Was It? Do we know what year that was? It's a story right before this. Didn't we just do What Was It?
What Was It? Beautiful Stranger was right after, was before it. It was before the Civil War.
Right. So What Was It comes out first.
Mm-hmm.
Then so What Was It is dealing with kind of just a goblin, like a thing that's invisible. This is dealing with a thing that's invisible that we are filtering through a scientific prism.
It's the evolution of literature.
Yes,
it's
very much so.
And building.
To an extreme degree, and in fact, where is it? There is trying to find Ambrose Bierce was a huge influence on Robert Chambers, who we covered. And this is not my original idea, but there's What Was It? There's The Damn Thing. A lot of people point to A.E. Van Vogt's Black Destroyer, which is considered like the first modern science fiction story, like of the 20th century. And then John Campbell's Who Goes There. And then up to and including like At the Mountains of Madness, the narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym, as kind of this declension, this like development of the short story, like the horror story, that all deal with unknown entities that aren't ghosts, and they aren't they're almost unknowable in the sense that we don't know what they want. We don't know why they're here. Their motives are vague. Their appearance is vague. And there is just this horror in the unknown and the unfathomable that like, it's that sort of development of weird fiction.
It's like that Doctor Who episode.
The one where the girl draws the scribble that comes to life?
No, what?
The one where the boy turns into a garbage can? No, the one where
the doctor almost nearly drives himself insane by like considering the possibility of creatures that can't be seen because nobody has developed the senses to see them yet.
Oh, right. It is kind of like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
We don't have the senses to see the damn thing. Also, I was surprised. I thought the damned thing was going to be like the damned thing. Like it's been damned. No, it's literally just him calling it a damn thing. Oh, where's that damn thing? Oh, that damn thing. I was like, oh, okay. Like which means, of course, we're allowed to say damn because that's the name of the story.
Yep. Do we not say damn?
No, we can say damn.
Yeah.
That's not a real swear anymore. Not in 2024.
No more. Definitely not.
Definitely not in 2024. So we've got this story that you had set up top, though, that you had thoughts. You were like, I don't even know if this is an invisible thing. What are you talking about?
Well, because to me, the idea of an invisible creature is something supernaturally invisible, right?
Okay.
Like the goblin creature. This feels more like just a chameleon-esque type of thing.
Like a predator.
Yeah. So it's not invisible. It's just hard to see.
But, I mean, the predator's invisible.
I'm, okay, not the predator, but like, I don't know, it feels... I think it would have been better if the creature wasn't invisible, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
But then it'd just be a creature.
No, hear me out. Not like completely visible. I think that had there been some like detail about like the dust or the smoke forming like around the creature as the creature charged through, I think that would have been neat because I don't know, it
almost seems insubstantial.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Which leads me to, of course, my big question. And I have this about What Was It as well. Why don't you throw paint on it? Throw paint on it.
They didn't have paint.
What are you talking about? They didn't have paint.
They were out hunting. Why would they have paint on them?
Okay, fine. Throw like mud on it or something. Throw something. I guarantee you there's something you can throw on the thing. Especially in What Was It? Where they have the thing tied down.
They plastered it.
Eventually, but they're like, we can't figure out what it even looks like. I'm like, pour ink on it. Pour paint on it. It's just
pour flour on it, like in all the cartoons.
Flour on it. Yeah, it's just do something. And this, I'm like, yes, I see what you're saying though. Like there seems to be you can't touch it, but it can touch you.
Yeah.
It does move the oats. Like it does. There's a lot in there about the movement of the grass. We'll get into this when we talk about Algernon Blackwood's The Willows, but this part reminded me of The Willows a lot. There's this sort of like, there's an eeriness about the landscape. This guy's out in the middle of nowhere, and there's something stalking around his land that he can't see.
I just think, well, we'll get to that when we get to The Willows. I don't want spoilers.
Oh, no, yeah. No.
I just think that they fired a gun at it. That would leave a mark. Like gunshot residue on the creature.
Or blood or something. But,
for the sake of whatever, fine. It's clearly like the story of a man that the story happened in like 30 seconds rapid succession while this man was in shock trying to process everything. I just think it would have been neat if there had been a little spooky detail or something.
You wanted a few more spooky details. You wanted them to shoot it and then there's green blood on the leaves.
Creatures.
And then the main guy goes, if it bleeds, we can kill it.
I like creatures. I want to know more about the creatures. I liked what was it because they had a goblin creature.
It did have a goblin at the end. So we're currently watching. We're in the middle of season 4 of Stranger Things, and I don't know if you've seen season 4 of Stranger Things.
No, I probably never will.
But there's people die in it by being lifted up in the air, and then all of their bones are broken, like their jaw, and then their eyes are gouged out by something you can't see.
Yeah.
And it's horrifying and horrific and horrifying and horrific. But it reminds me a lot of what it's like to watch this guy get destroyed by this monster. He's like bent back and the thing is like tearing into his skin. It's smashing his bones. It's just tearing apart. It doesn't eat him either. It just kills him. Which makes me think of the goblin from What Was It? Because we don't know why this thing is here. Like if it was just trying to kill him originally, it would have just killed him because it's invisible. Like it doesn't need to stalk you. It just needs to kill you. And so maybe it was just trying to observe him. Maybe if he hadn't shot at it, he'd have been fine.
Probably. This creature didn't do anything until it was shot.
Yeah.
I think that my biggest peeve with this story is how short it is. I think it would have been better if it was just a little longer and had a few more details.
I bet Ambrose Bierce would have been happy for you to say that.
But I will say, I really liked the last section, and that was the only section that actually kind of scared me.
It's spooky. It's spooky. So Ambrose Bierce was asked, did you rip off James O'Brien's What Was It?
Yeah.
Is this story just a rip-off of it? To which Ambrose Bierce said that O'Brien's monster was, this is coming to your point, O'Brien's monster was supernatural and impossible. Whereas he described, quote, a wild animal that cannot be seen because although opaque, like other animals, it is of invisible color, which I'm like, okay. But I guess I kind of see what he's saying.
Yeah.
Which means that O'Brien's What Was It is considered gothic horror. And The Damned Thing is considered science fiction horror.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is Lovecraft kind of ran with this idea with From Beyond, which is about us being surrounded by entities that are kind of outside our reality, but that we can't see until we get the ability to see them. But also the color out of space.
Yes, I was going to mention the color out of space. It was like color out of space.
Yes, the idea of like a color that's wrong. And in this case, I mean, pure headcanon here, is the creature from this from outside our reality. So instead of, because like Cthulhu, like all of Lovecraft's creatures, it doesn't literally exist in our world. So it's not made of the same matter that we are. So you couldn't shoot it, but it could still kill you because it's from a plane above ours. But
I could accept that. That I could accept.
But also, like Color Out of Space, it's visually on a wavelength. Like the Color Out of Space you can see, but it's unsettling and like it doesn't work right in your eyes. This thing then could be of an even worse color that instead of it being invisible, your eyes are just erasing it. Like you're just, your mind won't let you see it. Like that's
cool.
There's my head
awesome.
canon, which is terrifying because the thing is still out there. Like the people in this community are like, we just have to pretend it doesn't exist. Like we just have to pretend it's not there. Maybe they've run into it before. Maybe this is a thing that they all have experience with, but they're like, we don't talk about it. Like it kills someone every once in a while.
It's just the local cryptid.
It's the local cryptid. It's the local whatever you call it, Skungili man. It's just out there, like doing its thing. It's a Mothman. It's just trying to warn us about the bridge.
I'm playing the Moth. Oh, never mind. I'll talk about that later.
Never play the Mothman. He'll always figure you out.
I wanted more of the journal entries.
Well, I can't help you there, but I can help you if you wanted this story to be told in Serbo-Croatian.
Thanks, but I'm good.
There's a very faithful adaptation of this that I watched.
Yeah?
Made for Yugoslavian television in 1975 called Prokletinja, which is Serbo-Croatian for The Damned Thing.
All right.
It was made for Radio Television Belgrade, and it's like an hour long. It's on YouTube. It's on Vimeo.
Mm-hmm.
No subtitle, none. So you gotta kind of just know the story going in. A lot of chatter between the two guys, but it's pretty faithful. It's pretty much a faithful adaptation, but it's told linearly. It's told like from beginning to end.
This story is one that I would want to see visually, because I think there's some cool stuff that could be done with it visually.
Well, so then in 2006, for the TV series Masters of Horror, Tobe Hooper directed an adaptation of The Damned Thing, written by not Dickie the Math Man, but Dickie the Math Man's son, Dickie the Math Man. Remember, he also has a boy named Dick Math.
I forgot about that.
Richard Christian Matheson. An adaptation of The Damned Thing that is, here's the summary, brief summary, focuses on an invisible force wreaking havoc on a man's family and town that forces the town members to kill one another and then themselves. Oh, did I mention it's only loosely based on The Damned Thing?
Oh, yeah, okay.
I think that like the beginning of the episode is essentially The Damned Thing, and then it just runs off from there. Absolutely nothing to do with the short story. But I'm surprised this one didn't get more adaptations. It's very, like, there's no monster.
Yeah.
So I could see like a Twilight Zone or a Night Gallery or something. Or
like a college film student.
Right. Yeah, like, because you could do this on stage.
Yeah,
like it could
this story is there's very few sets. Mm-hmm. There's very few characters.
Yep.
It's mostly just talking.
You could make the jury of men just puppets.
Yeah.
Just have them be old man puppets. You don't even need to cast those guys. You just need the juror, like the dead guy and the boy.
The like scene hunting in the woods could be done so hauntingly.
Yeah. Yeah. You could have the monster played by a woman in black who appears in the shadows.
I was gonna say I'm like down with the monsters that can't be perceived thing, like that's kind of cool, but I want a monster that when you look at it, your brain doesn't like block it out. It just creates a negative space where the creature is, so you're just staring at this void that you can't comprehend. That's what I want. That's
what people say about seeing me. I always liked the special effect for the Predator. I always like that he's wearing something that bends light around him, so you can see where he is, but if you're not paying attention, you'll miss him.
I find that scarier than not being able to see something at all, because every, like, out of the corner of your eye, you'll occasionally see movement or whatever.
Yeah, just like in real life.
Mm-hmm.
You'll occasionally see movement.
Why does it move the plants if it doesn't? I don't understand. Oh no, I'm stupid. Never mind.
The Damned Thing?
Yeah.
Who knows?
I was like, why? Because it can interact with our world, but we can't interact with it. So
that's my theory, at least.
Even though the creature did scream when it got shot.
The creature did scream when it got shot. Maybe it was just
got
mad.
Jump scared.
Maybe it was just offended.
I would be offended if somebody shot me when I was minding my business.
So Ambrose Bierce also wrote famous stories like An Inhabitant of Carcosa, which is set in the mysterious ancient land of Carcosa and is much more supernatural. He wrote a very famous story called The Boarded Window, which has similarities to The Damned Thing because it's about an isolated incident. It's also set in a cabin in the wilderness. It's about isolation and our proximity to the untamed natural world. But one of Bierce's most famous works, and one that gets a lot of, besides the Devil's Dictionary, one that gets a lot of attention, Hold on. Is an occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to make sure it was not the occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. I was like, is it the or an? Which was made into a very famous short film that was so good that they just took the short film, I believe it won the Academy Award for live action short in 1963.
Nice.
And they just took the entire short film and made it an episode of The Twilight Zone. Like they just like they cut a few minutes out, made it an episode of The Twilight Zone. Like that's like how good that movie was. Like they were just like because Rod Serling was like, people have to see this. Like people need to see this. So Bierce, he lives on. His works live on. He lives on as a character in his stories. Final thought. Do you think this would make a good episode of Cabinet of Curiosities?
I think it would. I think potentially it would. My only concern would be them going too hard on the monster.
Yeah.
I feel like in order for this story to work the way that it works, you gotta not show the monster.
Yeah.
Because I think it would just end up being kind of a goofy looking whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that if they cut back on like the monster stuff that they usually do in their episodes, I think this would.
Yeah.
Like the it's like the what was the story? We read it as well. It was the story told about the coroner who's digging in people's heads and gets possessed by an alien.
I think it's just called The Autopsy.
The Autopsy, yeah.
Yeah.
It would be a good, like, it would, I feel like whoever did that one would do a good job with this.
If you had a good director of psychological, like, horror, and, like, really good at setting that mood.
Yeah.
Like, the first half of The Autopsy of Jane Doe, where you're just kind of like, yeah. Autopsies are creepy.
They are, yeah. There's a whole video game based off of them.
That's very true. There's a whole profession based off of them. It's called coroner. So that is The Damned Thing by Ambrose Bierce. Check out more of Bierce's work. He's a good writer. He's I mean, he's a solid writer, and a lot of his short stories are shorter than this. Like he gets in and gets out. He's like, here's my point. I've made it. I got more stuff to write. I've got more trauma to deal with. I got more ponchos to go visit. Would
you call them short stories or microfiction?
So some of them might border on microfiction. They are that
or flash
short.
Fiction, I guess.
Yeah, or slash fiction. He wrote a lot of Kirk Spock slash fiction.
Wrote a lot of fanfic.
Before Star Trek didn't even exist.
I do think that this story was definitely a self-insert.
Oh, yeah, right. For which character?
I think that he is all three of the characters.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you. So this is not the end, though, of our coverage of A Fabulous Formless Darkness. Willow, what is the next story in The Fabulous Formless Dark?
Edith Wharton's Afterword.
Why aren't we reading a story? Why are we reading her afterword?
For funsies.
It's a story called Afterward.
Yeah, it is also broken into sections.
It's not afterward. It's afterward.
Yes.
It's not. Yeah, it's two different
words.
One word. Afterward. Yes, Edith Wharton. Have we read any Edith Wharton yet? Absolutely not.
Because I don't think any of our female authors get repeated in this. Maybe did Joyce Carol Oates have 2 stories?
Did we have 2 Oateses? I don't remember.
I will check.
But I am looking forward to this. I like Edith Wharton. I like Edith Wharton's novels. I like being able to talk about a woman because we don't get to that often with this series.
Yeah.
But we're trucking right along with the Fabulous Formless Darkness, with the Dark Descent. So what are you looking at? I don't know what you're looking at.
We only have one Joyce Carol Oates, but we covered 2 because I wanted to cover that one story.
Oh, that's right. That is right. So Willow, where can our listeners find you?
Here.
That's right. Where can our listeners find me?
Here and
Yay!
Also everywhere.
All my shows are available on YouTube. Go to Phil Gonzalez, Raffish Ripoff on YouTube. You can find Deep in Bear Country, my Berenstain Bear podcast. You can find Pizza Toast, my YA books and media podcast that I do with Christy Admiral, and you can find us.
You can. We're a movie podcast, by the way.
Yeah, we also do movies. We just haven't done them in a while.
Yeah, well, because our last movie didn't work, and then we were like, okay, we're just just gonna read some stories. And then we were like, let's just finish this book before we get back into movies.
Let's finish this book. We're gonna finish this book and then get back into movies. Don't worry, we'll be back into movies. I've got so many Blu-rays I've bought for those movies. So
yeah,
I had to buy a DVD that's out of print in order to get one of the movies we're gonna watch. So. Anyway,
is that the one I insisted you buy because you were gonna skip it?
I don't know. That's so long ago now. But let's not keep these nice people here any longer. We've taken up too much of their time.
Too much.
So we'll be back with Edith Wharton because we love her. I'm Phil.
And I'm Willow.
And we'll see you when it's Del Toro time.
We're both Yapatron 3000s.
Beep boop.
Bop.